Tonight, we'll set our sights not on the bustling courts of kings or the clash of empires, but on something far more elemental: wood, rope, salt, and skin hardened by wind and water. Let your body rest, let the room grow still around you. In this peaceful moment, imagine the gentle creak of timber, the hush of fog rolling in off a vast and moody sea, and the rhythmic slap of waves against a weathered hull. Together we journey back to the Middle Ages, to the life of a fisherman, not the kind with colorful boats and sunny postcards, but the kind for whom survival meant braving dark waters before dawn in vessels that barely held together. Tonight's voyage is not heroic. It is ordinary, yet grueling. It is the forgotten heartbeat of coastal life. And as we drift through this story, you may find yourself pulled into sleep by the gentle current of time itself. Let us begin with the first light of day. Daily life immersion, the fisherman's dawn. Imagine yourself standing on the cold, damp stones of a harbor in England, or perhaps along the rugged coast of Normandy. It is the year 1347. The sea air is sharp with the scent of brine and old nets. Around you, a small crew of men shuffle through the fog, their hands calloused, their faces lined by wind and worry. Their boat is little more than a skeleton of planks, curved and stitched together, coated with tar that never quite dries. It rocks gently in its mooring, already half loaded with nets, baskets, and a heavy anchor of shaped stone. There is no luxury here, no compass, no deck to sleep on, no shelter from wind or rain. These are open boats, closer in spirit to ancient dugouts than modern ships. Before the sun crests the horizon, the fishermen push off. Their oars dip into black water, the rhythm slow and methodical. Conversation is sparse, if present at all. The cold bites through layers of wool and leather. Wet feet are the norm. Hunger is a quiet companion. By mid-morning they reach deeper waters. Nets are cast, large, heavy, hand-knotted nets, their weight increasing with each pull through the brackish depths. Sometimes they catch herring or cod, sometimes they catch nothing. On a good day, the sea provides enough for the market, enough for bread, perhaps enough for a bit of ale. On a bad day, the journey ends in empty hands and cold bones. Lunch, if you can call it that, might be a scrap of dried fish or hard bread. Water is often brackish or flavored with weak ale to ward off illness. Seasickness is common but ignored. Injuries, splinters, rope burns, infections are part of the background of life. The return voyage is no gentler. Wind picks up, rain is common. Lightning sometimes splits the sky, and the small boats rise and fall with terrifying grace. There are no life jackets, no flares, no rescue boats. If the vessel capsizes, it is simply gone, and so are those within it. Yet somehow, this rhythm repeats itself day after day. This was the life of a medieval fisherman, an unremarkable life. But it held a community together, it fed towns, it formed the backbone of coastal survival. Biography event, the tragedy of the herring trade. Now let us shift our gaze toward a broader current. Beyond the quiet toil of individual boats was a vast, shimmering network, the medieval herring trade, and at its center, a story not of a single man, but of a seasonal migration that shaped entire economies. Each year in the 14th century, the herring would arrive in vast silver clouds along the North Sea. From Scandinavia to the Low Countries, to the ports of England and France, entire towns timed their calendars to the herring's return. Boats grew in size and number. Salted fish became currency, sustenance, and power. The Hanseatic League, a commercial confederation of merchant guilds across northern Europe, thrived on this fishy commerce. Cities like Lübeck, Bruges, and Danzig grew rich off the backs of fishermen who rarely saw the inside of a counting house. But the seas were not always generous. In the late 1300s, a catastrophic change began. Climate shifted, fish patterns changed, overfishing crept in, storms grew harsher. And then, of course, came the Black Death. In 1349, the herring trade collapsed in many regions. Ports emptied, markets closed, entire towns withered without their silver lifeblood. And the fishermen? They bore the weight of it in silence. With fewer catches and fewer buyers, their already tenuous existence became even more fragile. This wasn't a war or a royal scandal, but it was, quietly, one of the great tragedies of the medieval working class. A slow vanishing of a way of life, a fading tide. Mystery, archaeology, culture, boat burials, and maritime superstitions. As we rest in the lull of the sea's breath, let us step quietly into the realm of mystery. In the Orkney Islands and across the Norse world, archaeologists have uncovered the remains of boat burials, small, weathered vessels laid to rest with their captains, sometimes surrounded by tools, weapons, and talismans of protection. These graves whisper to us of the sea's importance not just as a trade route, but as a spiritual pathway. In medieval England, too, sailors and fishermen held firm to quiet rituals. Before departure, they would sometimes nail a sprig of rowan to the bow, believed to ward off ill winds. Others refused to speak a certain name at sea, often the name of the devil or even of Christ, fearing it would draw storms. Cats, especially black ones, were both feared and revered aboard vessels. Some crews kept them for luck, others avoided them entirely. Even language had rules. Whistling, it was said, could summon gales, and spilling salt on the deck was cause for silent dread. These beliefs, of course, were not written into law. They were passed down in murmurs, part superstition, part inherited memory. In a world where each voyage might be one's last, comfort was found not in charts, but in quiet rituals and ancient gestures. Social elite contrasting daily life, fish for the king, bread for the poor. Now let us leave the creaking boat and walk inland, where the catch is weighed, salted, taxed, and transformed into something else entirely. The fish you helped catch, if you imagine yourself back in that boat, does not end up on your table. No, it journeys through the hands of merchants, into barrels, onto carts, and often to the banquet halls of nobles and clergy. In castles and monasteries, fish was a delicacy. On feast days and during Lent, the elite dined on eel pies, stewed lampreys, smoked trout wrapped in herbs, and herring preserved in imported spices. It was not the same herring that spoiled quickly in the hands of the poor. No, this was herring dressed in honey and cloves, presented on pewter platters beside wine-soaked bread. For common folk, fish was a means of survival, not celebration. The dried remains of a catch might be boiled into a thin soup. Bones were picked clean, and nothing was wasted. Bread was coarse. Water, if not sour, was precious. And when the catch failed, famine often followed. The contrast was quiet but profound. The same sea fed both pauper and prince, but the experience of eating was shaped entirely by one's station. Even the right to fish was not free. Many coastal regions required licenses or rents, and lords taxed fishermen for the very right to cast their nets. For the poor, it was a daily negotiation, between hunger and the elements, between effort and survival. And now, as we drift slowly back to the comfort of our modern lives, warm rooms, clean water, full bellies, take a final moment to reflect on those distant figures on the sea, men without fame, without fortune, and yet indispensable to the world they quietly sustained. They rose with the tide and labored against the wind. They knew no safety net, no weather report, no respite from the cold. And still, they rode. Tonight, you sleep beneath a roof, beside electric light, with the hum of distant cars instead of waves. But somewhere in the quiet rhythm of your breath, a trace of that ancient world remains. The rhythm of the oar, the sigh of the sea, the resilience of forgotten lives. Sleep well, traveler of time.